Hello, everyone. Welcome to this freeform episode of the Mindful in Minutes podcast. I'm Kelly, and today we're going to be talking about two different things. So, because Mother's Day in the US is coming up in just a few days, I thought it would be interesting to kind of explore things that I would say to my younger self. So, now that I am solidly 2 feet planted in my 30s and also a mother of two, I thought it would be interesting to think with that perspective. Like, if I could go back and, in a way, like mother my own inner child, like, what would I say to her? So I have some notes on that. And then I also wanted to explore how you can use meditation to talk to your inner child and maybe do some healing around that if that's something that you desire. Sunday's meditation will be a guided inner child meditation. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to call it yet, but it will be a practice where you can basically connect with your inner child, your younger self, and then kind of call in your older, wiser self to maybe talk to them or get some healing. So I thought that would be kind of interesting since it is, I don't know, Mother's Day season, I guess. I don't think I really have any announcements, just the usual things. I will make sure to link in the show notes like all of the freebies and stuff that I currently have. I know I'm not very good at talking about those, but I have a free How to Write Guided Meditations masterclass. I have a free meditation script that you can use if you're like a yoga teacher or a therapist or something like that, and you want to read a meditation script for whoever you're working with. And what else do I have? I have a free fertility bundle for anyone who wants guided meditations to help support them on their fertility journey. So I have all those things. I'm not very good at mentioning them, so I'm mentioning them now. I'll make sure to link to them in the show notes, which is that little kind of paragraph information underneath like the episode title. And that's it. Should we do our little check-in? How are you? How are you doing? I want to know. How are you doing? If you need to, pause me for a second and ask yourself, how am I doing? I still keep hearing from you guys that no one else is asking you that, which is such a bummer, but I will ask you that. I want to know how you're doing. And that is something that I think is just a really useful thing to do every single day, is just ask yourself, like, how am I doing? Without judgment. Like you were going to ask a best friend, how are you doing? And then you would just wait for their answer. So food for thought. Also, one quick little tangent that I thought was kind of funny. I have been reflecting a lot on female friendships and how special they are, how important they are, how beautiful they are, also how complex they are. And my husband said this thing just the other day about, he was saying something, he has a colleague who is, a mother. She recently had like her second baby, and he was just talking about how, they were talking about how hard it is, or she was kind of confiding in him how hard it is to return to work after maternity leave and things like that. And he was just kind of sharing this exchange. And I said, oh, you're like getting a feel for what it's like to have like a female friendship. And he was like, yeah. He's like, there's a lot of listening involved. And I don't know why I thought that was like so funny, but I mean, it is true. It's like there is a lot of sharing. And I guess I shouldn't say that not all male friendships. I just haven't seen a lot of them where there's the same level of kind of like sharing, but also then like active listening and listening to hear, not to respond. And so I think it was just interesting that he's getting like a taste of that particular dynamic. But that was just like fresh on my mind. I don't even know why I shared that, but I thought it was just, I don't know. It's fresh on my mind because a lot of the things on my list of what I would tell my younger self has to do with like loneliness and friendship and like finding your people and things like that. And so I've been thinking about, why are things so different for me now in terms of a friendship? And I've been thinking about the really beautiful friends that I have and how lucky I feel to have them and what that relationship looks like. And a lot of it is, it's just so nice to like have a friend that you can talk to, but also one that like listens. And so I just thought that it was funny to kind of hear his take on like a female friendship and how there's a lot of talking and a lot of listening, not to fix, but just to listen. So I thought that was interesting. So I don't know if there's any takeaway from that, but if there is, maybe if any of any men are listening, I know that there is a beautiful male Mindful Minutes community. I'm grateful for all of you. Maybe if you have women in your life, file that one away. Listen to hear, not to respond. So I don't know, food for thought. Okay, so I kind of just made a list. I did a little bit of meditation. I kind of sat, I was quieting my mind, and I was just reflecting on if I could go back to my younger self, and I'm thinking of my younger self as anywhere from little, like my kids now, to my younger self being in my 20s. What would I say? And I don't know why this was the first thing that came to my mind, but the first thing that came to my mind was wear sunscreen, which I promise they're not all silly like this. Okay, but really I do wish that I would have been better at sunscreen. I feel like when I was growing up, the look, and I was so susceptible to this because I just wanted to be accepted and fit in, was super tan, and we were going to tanning beds and just doing this awful stuff for our skin, not wearing any sunscreen. And my pale, fair skin complexion, I was never going to be a tall, bronze blonde, which is was the look back then. And I was never going to be that. And so I would go back now and be you know what, Kelly, it is not for you. Just wear your sunscreen. Maybe I would teach her, if you really want to look that way, maybe this is how you can, I don't know, get a spray tan. No, I don't think I would do that. Just be wear sunscreen. Your future self will thank you. So I don't know why that was the first thing that popped into my head. But the other things that are a little bit deeper than just wear sunscreen, but do wear sunscreen and drink water. I've always been good at drinking water, but this is me telling you wear sunscreen, drink water as your mom if you're younger than me. So something else that when I was reflecting, the second thing that really came up is that I would go back and I would tell her that one day I would go back to the hard times. So the times where I felt really lonely, the times, when my mom was going through her cancer treatments and I was struggling, just the really tough things. And I would just go back and I'd give her this big hug and I would say, I know that this feels big now, but one day it will feel small to you. One day this will all be behind you. And I think this is something that I've just gained through time, is that in the moment, there were so many things that just felt so big. And of course they did. When I was 16 and my mom was going through cancer treatments and I was scared and I felt alone, of course that felt so big. And I just think that if I could go back and tell myself, it would have been really comforting to hear from me to say, you know what, I know this is really big right now, but I promise there will be a day in which it won't be so big. And that was a theme that came up again and again when I was reflecting on this, was what do I want my younger self to know? And it's basically that things will get smaller with time. No matter how big it feels right now, things will get smaller. And I really appreciated this coming up for me because it's something that I can continue to apply to my life, even in my 30s, in my 40s, my 50s, beyond. Life brings you big, heavy things. Life brings you challenges, the things that feel all encompassing in that moment. So hard, so sad, so big, so tragic, whatever it is, there will be a day where it will not feel that big. And I think that would have been really comforting for me to hear. And it's something that came up a lot when I was reflecting on what would I tell my younger self? Another thing is the older you get, the less you know. And I really do feel when I was in my 20s, especially, I wanted to know everything. I was doing my best, I was learning about yoga and meditation and I was reading all these books. I also had a lot more time to devote to my actual knowledge. I was in college, I was doing all this stuff, really just committing myself to learning everything. But now the older that I get, I realize it's just the less I know. There's so much more out there. There's so I would just go back and tell myself you don't need to know it all, because one, there's no way that you can know it all. Keep your mind open. The experience of life, that is learning in and of itself. And honestly, the older you get, you will feel the less you know. There will be these new challenges, these new things where you're I don't know what to do with this. And that's okay. It's all a part of the process. But yeah, basically the older I get, the less that I know, or I feel like I know. And that's okay. And I think that challenges me to keep an open mind, to keep learning, to be comfortable and okay with saying, I don't know. I think I was really unwilling to say that when I was younger because I didn't want to come across as, I don't know, I didn't want to come across like I didn't know things because I wanted people to take me seriously. I wanted to seem informed and educated and smart. And I've talked a lot about, my internalized issues with when I was young and getting my ADHD diagnosis. Everyone just labeled me as, quote, dumb. And I didn't want to be perceived that way. And I would go back and say, there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. That doesn't make you dumb. That makes you real. That, makes you relatable to other people. It makes you like a safe place for other people not to know and for you to kind of learn these things together. Really, I feel like every day that I get older, it's like I know less. And I'm kind of okay with that. And I'm still learning and I'm still doing my best and I'm going to get things wrong. I'm going to learn new things. That's going to change my opinions. That's going to shape the way that I feel about things. And all of that is okay. The next one is throw out the checklist. I wish I could go back to my younger self who felt like this is the order that you need to do things. You need to follow this checklist. You need to go to school, you finish school, then you go to college, you get a degree, you get a prestigious job. Using that degree, you meet someone, you marry that person, you make this amount of money, then you have kids by this time, and you do this. Like, for what? I was so focused on just like following this checklist, this like plan that I felt like society had laid out for someone like me. And I really struggled when I started taking an unconventional route, especially, starting Yoga for You, building this business, starting podcasting before people really knew what a podcast was, all this stuff. Because there's so much resistance from people in my life, but also so much resistance from myself of not being okay all the time with doing something different and feeling like, oh, I'm not following the quote plan or doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And the older that I get, I think about that and I'm like, why was I so bothered by that? And also, where did I come up with this like checklist that this is the way that things need to be done and it needs to be done in this order? Like, I think it would have been really freeing for me to be like, you know what, just check out the checklist. Throw it away, this plan that you feel like you should be following. I would go back and say, one, why do you feel like you need to follow it? Whose approval are you trying to get? Like, what are you going to gain if you check on these boxes? Because even the boxes that I did check in the right order, I don't really feel like it necessarily brought me more happiness or fulfillment. I was just like, oh, okay, check. I went to college and I got the degree, check. Okay, now I, did this. I got a job in management. Okay, check. Like, for what? And I'm grateful for all those different experiences that I had. But I do think that it would have felt really freeing to me if someone would have been like, you know what? You don't need to do things in this particular order. Kind of piggybacking off of that, the next thing that came up was don't live by someone else's definition of success. This was something that I would have, I really wish I could have gone back and told myself this. I think it would have been really helpful for me. But again, as I'm saying this and I'm saying, I wish I could go back. The thing that's tricky about hindsight is, and reflection on things, is that I only came to these conclusions because of the experiences that I had and the life that I lived. And so to go back would be kind of like a cheat code. And then I get in this like loop, my brain breaks. I'm like, I don't know, would I actually not be helping myself if I could go back and give my younger self these tips? I don't know, because, we kind of need to have those struggles to get to where we are and to facilitate our growth and our evolution. But I do think that learning at a younger age that you don't need to live by someone else's definition of success is so important. Again, I think that would have been freeing for me. And I was so wrapped up in what other people thought. And I've seen this a lot popping up sometimes, even like on social media, people who are younger and they're saying, is there ever a time that you don't worry about what people think? And there is a time. I don't really care what people think right now. And I'm not entirely sure How I got there, I know some things that contributed. One I do think is age. Another is, I think, this lesson of learning, like, I only need to live by my definition of success and no one else's. No one else's approval is going to make me feel better about myself, not in the long term. It might feel good in the short term. I'm like, oh, that person thinks I'm doing a great job. That's amazing. But what I really need to be working on and what I really needed to find was approval within myself. And once you start caring for the person that you are and appreciating and celebrating the person that you are, you don't need other people to do that for you because you can do it within yourself. And working towards that, I think, made the biggest improvement in not caring what other people think, because at the end of the day, I'm the only one that has to look in the mirror at night and say, I'm proud of the person that I am. I did my best. I'm working on things. Like, I'm the only one that needs to give myself approval at the end of the day. And that has made such a big shift in my life. And I really don't care that much what other people think. And so I don't know. I don't know if any of this is helpful for anyone, but I know, I want to say it was, well, it would have been like 3 years ago. I think it was right around when I was turning 30. I did an episode on, like, I want to say 10 things I learned before I turned 30. And that's the episode, one of them that I still get the most feedback on, even though it's like years old at this point. And so I thought, let's revisit that of like things that now with more perspective, a few more years, also this step into motherhood. Let's, do a little bit more reflection. So I'm just kind of saying these things, and what resonates with you, keep it. What doesn't, leave it. But there will be a day where you won't care what people think, especially when you start just looking for approval within. It is hard to find approval within, but that to me is like the secret key to really unlocking, like, not caring what other people think, is just realizing you don't need to live by what someone else's definition of success is. Like, I remember I got so much pressure to go get an MBA when I started Yoga for You. I didn't want an MBA. I wanted to build my business my way. I didn't want to go get a master's in business. That didn't feel right to me. And yet there was a certain pocket of people in my life that were just pushing me to get this MBA. And I'm like, for what? And now in hindsight, I realize it's because they didn't value me in the business I was building, and they were going to feel better somehow as if what I was doing was more legitimate and more prestigious if I had this master's. Like, I don't want to go get a master's for someone else. If I'm going to go back to school, I'm going to do it for me, not for anyone else. And for why? So don't live by someone else's success. And I'm so glad that I listened to my gut in those moments. And I was like, I do not need an MBA right now. That's not it. And I don't need your approval to say that the business that I'm building is silly because it's rooted in yoga and meditation and I don't have a master's. Like, whatever. Okay. Like, I don't need you to feel good about what I'm doing. I feel good about what I'm doing. These are kind of, as I'm looking over my next two, actually, I'm going to skip down to one. Don't waste your time trying to get approval from people who don't even respect you. Wow, that one would have been really helpful, because what I realized is the people who are pushing me the most, and the people all I wanted was their approval, because now I realized they didn't really respect me. They didn't value me. And so I think that I felt like if I could somehow get these people who didn't respect and value me to respect and value me, then I would respect and value myself. And that is not how it works. If someone doesn't respect you, if someone doesn't value you, don't waste your time. What a waste of time. Don't do it. Instead, again, look inward. Work on building respect and value for yourself. That is all that you need. And all those people that say, oh, and this one sticks with me because it was just so condescending. And someone said to me when I was telling about my business, they're like, oh, so you're just going to stretch with people all day until your husband becomes a doctor and then he can pay for your lifestyle? And someone told me that, and I still, you guys know, that is one of my soft spots. That is one of my weaknesses. I have a fear. I also, I shared my fear the other day too, that people are going to think I'm a bad meditation teacher because I have clutter in my house. I don't know why it's a true fear of mine. But I'm if someone came over to my house and they saw that it's messy a lot of the time and there's clutter and all that, again, I'm obviously still working on some of these things. But another fear that I had, other than people will think somehow I'm worse of a meditation teacher because there's clutter in my home, is there are still a couple of things that I'm still working on releasing. And one of them is people thinking that I don't care about what I do, or people thinking that the business that I've built is just some silly hobby because, yes, one day my husband was going to be a doctor and I didn't want to be labeled as a quote, like doctor's wife in like the loaded way where people thought that like I was just doing this quote like for fun until I could be like a kept woman. That one still every once in a while that creeps in and I'm still working on that stuff. And when people insinuate that, it does sting a little bit, but I think it comes from, I heard that a lot when I was starting my business. And I just felt so frustrated by that because I wanted to say, excuse me, I am actually the sole provider for my entire family. And it's hard building a business. It's hard chasing a dream. It's hard to build something where then you can support your entire family on it. And reflecting back on that is just don't waste your time. Do not waste your time with those people and what they're saying. It's just noise. It is just noise. Turn inward. Allow your inner self to be your safe, quiet space and listen to that person. Don't listen to the noise. And there's still, I spent a lot of time listening to the noise and I held on to some of it that I'm still working on releasing because I'm human. And that's one of them is like people thinking that what I do is like silly or illegitimate. And that my actual goal in life is to just be like this kept woman. But also like if they think that, then okay, then they think that, whatever. It doesn't change what I'm doing or the passion that I have for it or the excitement that I have for it. So don't waste your time trying to get approval from people who don't even respect you. Just trust me, not worth your time, I promise. The next one is one day the best thing in your life will be the friends that you have. This, like I said, kind of at the top of the episode, like I feel so fortunate for the beautiful friends that I have. And you guys know I spent so much of my life feeling lonely, not having friends, just wishing someone, anyone would like want to hang out with me, want to play with me, have me over on a play date, like all of these things. I just had this yearning for friendship for so long. And I just felt like maybe for so long, I don't know, that maybe I was just meant to be alone or that people didn't like me. And I just felt so lonely. And so if I could go back and like mother my own little child and like talk to her again, I would say like truly one of the most special things in your life when you get older is the incredible, beautiful friends that you have. And you have this beautiful, tight inner circle of women that are amazing. And I think that would give me a lot of hope. And I also think that it would give me comfort. And I would just say, be patient. And then piggybacking off of that, I would also go back and say, you know what? Once you stop trying to be someone that you're not, once you stop trying to be who you think people want you to be instead of being who you really are, like once you stop doing that, your people will come. And now in hindsight, I realize that no one could really connect with me because I wasn't even connected to myself. I was doing all of these things that weren't authentic to who I was because I just wanted anyone's approval. So I would, be like a different person, different places with other different people, just trying to get anyone to like me and to want to be my friend. But the funny thing is like that was actually the thing that was stopping me from forming deep connections with people. And so the more that I got to know myself, but also the more that I just kind of let go of that, of just wanting anyone's approval, and I started connecting to who I am and doing what I loved, that's when people came. That's when my community was built. That's when I met other people who were doing what they loved. And like that was magnetic to me. And then I was doing what I loved. And then that was magnetic to them. And then we connected on like the real true things that have to do with us and not like superficial things. And once I stopped just trying to get anyone to be my friend and I started to get to know myself better, that's when the true friends came. And so I would tell myself that, like, you know what? I know it's lonely now and it hurts now and it's tough, but like one, you will find people, really beautiful, special people. And also you don't need to go out and try to get anyone's approval. Again, don't waste your time on people who don't respect you or value you. And that really, for me now in hindsight, like that's what made the big difference, the biggest difference, I think, in shifting my perspective on friendships. And sometimes I've had people request, like, can you do a meditation for like finding friendships? And I don't really know how to tackle that one per se, but the best advice that I have when people ask about finding friends as an adult is like, be bold and be brave and go do things that you love and kind of put yourself out there, and like the people will come. At least that's my experience. And it might take time, and that's okay. But yeah. Then the next one is different isn't bad. This one's like a little bit cliche. Different isn't bad. It's beautiful. And that will be the thing that eventually sets you apart. Spent so much time trying to hide the things that I thought were, quote, different about me. And before I recorded this episode, what I'm about to say is like a very niche thing for like toddler parents. But anyone who is familiar with the Paw Patrol, so any of my other, toddler parents out there, I was playing with Pork Chop and he has these little, like the whole little Paw Patrol. There's a point to this, I promise. This whole little the Paw Patrol like gang, all the little, dogs and whatever. And there's this one, Rex, and he is like this little doggy in like a wheelchair. And I think he's a newer addition to the Paw Patrol. And I don't know, when I first saw Rex, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a dog, like, oh, Rex, that dog in a wheelchair. And I don't know. So he has like his little front feet on the ground, and then like the little thing, like the little wheelchair, it's like the wheels in the back, and then he walks and then the wheels are behind him. And it was so interesting because we were playing, and I've always looked at Rex, and this is probably a space where I can grow. So thank you, I guess, Nickelodeon, for highlighting this growth opportunity for me. Is like I always looked at Rex as like the one that was like different. And then Pork Chop, we were playing, whatever. Marshall was, quote, stuck in this. I don't know, it was a little scenario. We were playing this out. And then he was like, oh no, Marshall's stuck. Marshall's another one of the dogs, guys. For anyone, again, who's like, Kelly, what are you talking about? It's just go with me. Okay, there's a point here. So Marshall was stuck in the snow. And then he decided that Rex was the one that was going to, save Marshall. And he was like, Rex is going to come up in his really cool wheels and save Marshall. And I don't know what it was, but my eyes were opened at the perspective of like this little Rex action figure who had the wheels on the back. And to me, I was like, oh, look at this dog who is wheelchair bound. And then Pork Chop was like, wow, look at his really cool wheels. And he had done this like just this whole thing about, obviously Rex was just like so cool because he was the dog that had these like wheels, and that made him so special and so unique. And I don't know what it was. I think it was because I'd been reflecting on this and I knew I was going to record this episode later. But I was like, oh my gosh, like, wow, he is different. And like, look at those cool wheels. And it just kind of clicked for me that it's like, quote, different. Like really what that really is only, it's like the meaning that you assign to different. And when I was younger, I would have seen myself like my, quote, like metaphorical, like wheels. I didn't see that as cool or different. But like what I'm realizing now as I get older is that actually is the thing that's like cool and special and unique, is the thing that's like, quote, different about me that I wanted to hide, that I wanted to suppress. I didn't want anyone to know about that, that I had ADHD, that I had dyslexia, that I learned differently, that I had this passion for yoga and meditation. And I was like young and would dream of going on these like meditation retreats when I was like in my early 20s, and like no one was doing that. And that was actually the thing that made me really unique. And so those are my, quote, like cool wheels. I don't know if that resonated with anyone else, but it was very illuminating to me this morning at like 7 a.m. when I was playing Paw Patrol with Pork Chop. That like what you perceive to be different, someone might perceive to be like the really like just like most special, amazing thing about you. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. So maybe you have something that you need to get off of your chest, like how I just got off of my chest a realization that Pork Chop's Paw Patrol action figures brought to me, that, what makes us different is beautiful. But we all carry around different stressors, whether they're big or small. And I feel like when we keep these things bottled up, it really can start to affect us negatively. And something that's really special about therapy is that it does create this safe space for you to get things off your chest or to talk them through, like whatever is just weighing you down. There's so much of this, like if I could go back to my younger self, I think another thing I would say is like, maybe start therapy a little bit earlier so you can talk these things through instead of being so in your head. You can get this objective perspective on some of these things that you're struggling with that you need to get off of your chest. And that is something that I love about therapy now that I'm adult, is that it really does create that safe space for me to explore and talk things out and just kind of learn these positive coping skills. It's just really great. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/minutes today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/minutes. All right, so coming back now, a couple more things that I would tell my younger self. This one, I would say, what's the hunger? So this one is, I'm not going to get like too deep in it, but I've shared this before, so I feel fine sharing it again. But when I was younger, there's been different ebbs and flows in which I've struggled with kind of different eating patterns, wanting to have my body look a certain way. With that came a lot of hunger. And in hindsight, something that if I could go back during those times and like wrap myself up in a hug, I would ask myself, what's the true hunger here? And this is something that, when this stuff, again, I'm only human, so sometimes these things pop up or, yeah, I don't know. Anyone, if you know, right? You can feel like something like this is so far in your rearview mirror, but then every once in a while something will pop up and you're like, wow, I'm feeling a certain way about it again. And when that happens, something that I ask myself now is like, what's the actual hunger? Like, what am I actually trying to fulfill here? What am I trying to do? For me, in hindsight, it wasn't really about the food. I know now in hindsight that what I was trying to do was I was trying to get acceptance from others and from myself, that maybe if I looked a certain way, if I was a certain size, if I could fit into a certain kind of clothes or whatever, that then maybe people would like me. But really what was even deeper, the hunger was actually, I had a hunger to like myself. And that was just for me. I can't say that's, for anyone else. But I would go back, I would give her the biggest hug and say, like, what's the actual hunger here? Like, changing the way that you're eating, being restrictive or doing these other things with your food, that it's not really about the food. Like, what's actually going on here? And I would have, if I could mother her in that moment, I would just say, let's just look a little bit deeper. Like, what are we actually trying to do? And I recognize now that I really was yearning for other people's acceptance, but mostly my own acceptance. And that no amount of hunger and no amount of numbers on a scale or dress sizes or whatever, none of that actually ever brought me closer to my own approval or my own love. It was just, again, noise. It was just something. I was just masking what I actually needed, which was my own approval. So I would go back and I would teach myself the thing that every once in a while, as an adult, something like that will pop up, and I'll ask myself, like, what's the actual hunger, or like what's actually going on here, and sometimes it's like a need for control. Sometimes it's if I'm feeling like, I don't know, it's sometimes it's just the most random things. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be hunger, right? If I've really worked hard to change my relationship with my anxiety. And so, but every once in a while when it creeps in, I'll ask myself, like, what's actually the fear here? Like, what's going on? I would teach myself the ability to kind of hit the pause button, turn inward and say, okay, these symptoms, these habits, these things that I'm experiencing, like, what's actually going on? What's the trigger here? And I think that would have been a really useful tool for me when I was younger. And I have found it to be a really useful tool now as I periodically navigate this stuff as an adult. Second to last thing is I would teach her what I call the friend test, which I think I've talked about this before. And that is, if you feel better after being with someone, like if you feel like you're spending time with people and they're a forklift, they're lifting you up, they stay. If anytime you spend time with someone, I'm talking anyone, not just friends, like friends, romantic relationships, work relationships, if you can, neighbors, anyone. If every time you spend time with them, you feel like lower, spend less time with them. Either they have to go. Sometimes we can't always, like, if it's like our work relationship or whatever, we can't always just be like, oh, I'm not going to spend any time with you. But like this test where I just basically trust my body to tell me if that person is an uplifting person in my life or if they are not. And spend more time with the uplifting people and less time with the, what's depressive people? I don't know. That sounds really dark. But like, if you think about people, basically, are they lifting you up or are they weighing you down? And just spend less time with the people that are weighing you down and more time with the people who are lifting you up, and also just more time with yourself. And I think that when I learned that I could trust my body, even if my mind was trying to rationalize, like, oh, well, on paper, this seems like a good thing. No, the body always knows. Trust your body, trust your gut, and like, how do I feel after I spend time with this person? And trust that. There were a couple of times where I didn't trust my gut when it came to having relationships with people, and I should have, but like, always trust your body with that. And then the very last thing, if I could go back, like every single year of my childhood and say this to my younger self, I would, and it would be that I am just so proud of you and I love you. And I think that was the thing. And I did get this a lot. Like, I have a phenomenal mom. And you guys know Mama Smith, she listens. Okay, so Mom, if you're listening, you are phenomenal. You rock. I love you. You told me all the time how much you loved me and how proud you were of me. That was not missing from my life. The thing that was missing from my life was hearing that from myself. And so if I could go back and like hold my little self and say, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of the things that you're doing. I'm proud of the way that you're handling these struggles. I'm proud of the resilience that you're building. I believe in you. You can do it. And I love you so much. Like, I would tell myself the way that I hold my children. And maybe this is something that's coming from perspective because you guys know, I feel like kids, I call it the Grinch effect, where it's like, your heart just grows bigger when you have kids. And then you have another child and it just grows even bigger. It's like the Grinch, your heart just grows. And I hold my kids so tight and I just love them so much. And I finally understand that idea of like a mother's love. And if I could go back and hold myself in that same way, my little self, as I do Pork Chop and Poppy and even Mila, I would do that and be like, I'm just so proud of you. You are so beautiful. You're so special. I love you. That would be like the thing. If I could go back in time, I think out of all these things on the list, that would be the thing that I would do first. And if I could only do one, that'd be the thing that I would do. So yeah, that is what I would tell my younger self, my inner child. And I want to take a few moments and like I said, we'll do a guided practice for this on Sunday, but I want to talk about how you can use meditation to do this for yourself. And basically what it looks like is you would take a few deep breaths, kind of calm your body, quiet your mind, set the intention of connecting with your younger self. And I will say this will probably bring up some emotion, and that's okay. And we're only coming from a place of love. So you just get to that quiet place. And the first thing you do is you're just going to ask your younger self to come forward. You can just say, hey, whatever. It sounds silly if I'm like, hey, little Kelly. But I imagine her in my head, like what she looked like. I used to have this like big gap in between my teeth before I had braces, right? So I picture her with her, big gap and always in mismatched clothing. And I just call her forward and like ask if she wants to talk and like connect with her. And that's the first thing. And maybe in your meditation, that's all you focus on at first, is just connecting with her. And then once you've connected with her or him, whatever your inner child looks like, I just then hold them. Hold them, hug them. Anyone who is a mother or has a child in your life, whether you're an aunt or an uncle or a godparent, whatever it is, right? The way that if a little child came to you, even like a puppy, and they came to you and they just needed that like hug, like embrace them in that way. And just spend your time, one, connecting to them, getting a clear picture of them, sending them unconditional love. And then once you've worked on that, and this is something you can work on, for days, weeks, months. I still sometimes, go back and connect with her. Then after you kind of build that safe space between the two of you and you give your inner child this love, this connection, this respect, you just hold them. It's almost kind of this unification of your older, wiser self and your younger self coming together. Then you can start to have a dialogue. You can talk to them, tell them things that you want them to know. You can ask them, say, what is it that you want me to know? And when I do this, it's interesting because the thing that comes up for me is that I want to tell my younger self, I'm so proud of you. But then when I talk to my younger self, she wants to say wow, look at what you're doing now. And it's we have this, we're just so proud of one another. And that's really special and for me, really beautiful. But that's when you can talk to your younger self. What do I need to know? What do you want to tell me? But then also you can ask your younger self and say, what do you want to know, from me? And you can start to build this relationship and this connection. And through meditation, you can start to build this relationship, this bond, this love between the two of you. And then before you know it, you'll, in your everyday life, kind of have this connection between the two of you. You'll be able to kind of access that inner child more easily, more readily, quickly. And you kind of start to integrate your inner child and your adult self together. And it's a really special, beautiful thing. And so if you're working with meditation, you want to do some inner child work, that's how I like to do it. That's how I do it personally. That's how I teach it. I'll do a guided practice for you on Sunday for this, but just taking time to quiet your mind, relax your body, because sometimes when we do this child stuff, a lot can come up. We can get kind of those physical triggers, right? Like breathing quickly, anxiety, sadness, big emotions. Try to quiet your nervous system and then just sit with that inner child. Sit with them, hold space, connect with them before you even start talking to them. Create a safe space. Be that safe space for that child within you first. Then you can work on building the relationship. Then you can have the dialogue. Then you can work on integrating your younger self into your adult self and seeing what is that like? What comes up for me? And it can be a really special, beautiful thing, but it takes time. So that is what I have for you. I am really looking forward to later today. I'm going to record and create this inner child meditation for you. I am sending you so much love. I appreciate you. Again, all of these are just my own inner thoughts and inner workings. So hold on to what resonates, release what doesn't. And I encourage you to try this exercise for yourself. It doesn't matter what age you are. Try connecting with your younger self. What would you tell that younger self? Also, what would your younger self tell you? And it's just this really special, beautiful exercise that I found a lot of value in. And yeah, I hope that you are doing well. And I appreciate you. And I'll see you on Sunday for a meditation.